Okay, so now that we've covered our main, multiplying like bases, so we add our exponents, and dividing like bases, so we subtract our exponents, there's just a few other things that are out there. For example, you could have an exponent that's negative. And when an exponent is negative, really all it means is to put it in the other spot. So, for example, you could think of it as negative, it's unhappy in its spot. For example, a to the negative m, well, it's unhappy up here, so go ahead and put it down there, and look, now it's a positive, okay? So that's really all that's happening. Same thing here, if I've got 1 over a negative a to a negative m, then I simply can move it to the top, and that exponent now becomes positive. The biggest thing to know is no matter what it is, say I have 2 to the negative 2. And if you plug this in your calculator, what will happen is you will end up getting 1/4 as an answer. Well, please keep in mind, this negative exponent will never make this number negative, because this is me multiplying 2 times 2 times 2, and when you're multiplying positive numbers, they will never be negative. The negative exponent simply tells you to put it below or above. So move it to the top, move it to the bottom, and then it'll become positive. So let's try that idea. Here I have x to the negative 4th. Well, that's the same thing as saying x to the negative 4th over 1. Well, my x is very unhappy being on top, so instead I'll make it happy. In other words, make the 4 positive on the bottom. Okay, and that's one way to think about it. The negative's unhappy, so you're going to move it. The other thing to remember is your exponent only goes with what immediately precedes it. So this a right here is being raised to a negative 2. Which means my b is just going to stay on top, but my a will be positive 2 on the bottom. So I'll have a squared on the bottom, whereas I have a to the negative 2 on top. So literally all you're doing is the sign will go away if you just move it to the other place. So here, first we're going to do a little simplifying. Nothing's changed in that regard. I'm going to multiply like bases. Remember, there's a 1 here, so 1 times 2 would be 2. Well, then I have x to the 4th times x to the 8th. When multiplying like bases, we add the exponents. So I have x 4 minus 8, right? Because it's 4 plus a negative 8, which will give me 2x to the negative 4. Once again, keep in mind this exponent only goes with what immediately precedes it, which is the x. To make it positive, I simply move it to the bottom, and now my exponent is a positive 4 instead of a negative 4. So if you bounced over to your classwork, there are some examples that you could do along with that. Number 1, number 4. This has got, well, some of them got some other things in there. So let's go ahead and move to our 0 property. Is that my next one? Oh no, we gotta do this one, sorry. Yeah, my 0 property. So looking at my 0 property, this is just another one of those ideas out there. And if you'll take 100 and you'll raise it to the 0 power in your calculator, what you'll find is it's going to equal 1. 5,000 raised to the 0 power, you plug in your calculator, also gives you 1. In actuality, anything raised to the 0 power equals 1, keeping in mind that power only goes with what is right in front of it. So when I look at this a to the 4th over a to the 4th, well, those are the exact same, right? So they could actually cancel out and they become 1. Well, we know it that way. We also know that we could do a 4 minus 4, which would give us a to the 0 power. And we know a to the 0 power is also 1. So that's 2 ways of looking at it. This next one, keep in mind, it's like there's a 1 here. So 1 times 2 is 2. And then I got x. Multiplying like bases, I add or combine the exponents. In this case, it's 4 minus 4. So I get 2x to the 0. Well, x to the 0 is 1, so I got 2 times 1, which equals 2. Please keep in mind that 0 only goes with what immediately precedes it. It does not go with the 2. If you look at your classwork, you'll see, so now 2 you could do. There's some other 0 powers out there. Be real careful with this one. Remember, it's only what immediately precedes it, right? I think the rest of those are dealing with your negatives. Oh, here you go. Here's another one. So then we talk about our last one we're going to talk about, which is raising a power to a power. Okay? When you talk about raising a power to a power, for example, this is negative 5x to the fifth, and it's all being cubed. Well, that means I'm going to multiply this 3 times. In other words, negative 5x to the fifth times negative 5x to the fifth times negative 5x to the fifth. That would be negative 5x to the fifth cubed, because you're multiplying it 3 times. When I do that, I get negative 5 times negative 5, which is positive 25, times negative 5, which will give me negative 125. Now I'm multiplying like bases. So my like base is x, and I'm going to add the exponents. So 5 plus 5 plus 5 gives me 15. Well, there's a shortcut in doing this as well. Whenever I do this cube up here, you may have noticed by now, this ended up being 15, right? Which I ended up with 3 5s, right? So really all you got to do is multiply those exponents, and that's where you'll get this 15 right here. However, the problem we often forget is this negative 5 over here is also being cubed. So what you would need to do would do negative 5 cubed x to the 15th, and then of course you would work out negative 5 cubed, which is negative 125 x to the 15th. So now let's try that idea with 2 squared to the 4th. So this simply means if you're raising a power to a power, we multiply them. So that means 2 to the 8th power. And then we plug this into our handy dandy calculator to get an answer. And then the last one we got a few steps. Remember, you've got to do this in the right order. This exponent's going to come before this multiplying right here, correct? Because then they go PEM, well, there's the exponent right there in PEMDAS, right? So let's see. I'm taking negative 2 to the x to the negative 4th power. I'm going to start off by dealing with this negative. The negative tells me it's unhappy where it is. Remember, this exponent goes with what's before it, which is the parentheses. So that means I'm going to put negative 2 to the x in the basement, okay? Since it's negative up top, it wants to be down below. So I'm going to move it down below. Now I've got it to the 4th power, okay? So now I've got x to the 4th on top. Nothing's happening with that. But then I've got this raised to the 4th power. Well, that's negative 2 to the 4th. And then this is like having a 1, correct? So 1 times 4 would be x to the 4th. And then we would do negative 2 to the 4th power. Well, let's see. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Times negative 2 is negative 8. Times negative 2 is positive 16. And that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4. I did it 4 times. So that means I got x to the 4th over 16 x to the 4th. Well, then what I also would like for you to notice is you've got an x to the 4th and an x to a 4th. Since they're the same, they will cancel and become 1, which will leave you with 1 over 16. Okay, so these are those 3 different kind of ideas out there that you could come across. So we'll just do a few together if you haven't already done them. This would be 2 to the negative 3. Well, the negative tells me to put the 2 down below. So now I have 1 over 2 cubed. Notice the negative is now gone. So I took care of the negative. Now I just have to deal with the 2 cubed. So I got 1 over, well, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So 1/8. Over here, I got 1 over 10 to the negative 4. Well, I'm going to deal with the negative first, which is going to give me 10 to the 4th. And then after that, I do 10 times 10. Well, 10 times 10 is 100, times 10 is 1,000, times 10 is, in other words, you need 4 zeros, right? Then we've got this right here. Well, this would be 3 to the negative 2. Once again, I'll deal with the negative first. So I got this 5 to the 0. Well, 1 over 3 squared is 9, 1/9. 5 to the 0 is 1, so I end up with 1/9. Let's see, then we come over here, and I've got, well, 2 times 5 is 10. Then I got a squared times a. Remember, there's a 1 there, which will give me a cubed. I got b to the negative 3 and b to the, remember, there's a 1 there as well, which will give me b to the negative 2. Multiplying like bases, I add the exponents. Then I got 10a cubed. I'm never going to leave a negative exponent, so I'm just going to move b to the bottom and let it be squared. That's what will make your negative go away. Just move it to the other spot. Here I'm going to multiply 6/5 times 25. Let's see. So 6/5 times 25. 5 will go into 25 5 times, which will give me 6 times 5, which is 30. So I end up with x to the 30th power. And this will be the last one we do together. I'm going to start off by dealing with my numbers. 10 divided by 5 would be 2. And then where's my bigger x? Well, x squared is bigger than x to a negative number, so I got x on top, and then I do 2 minus negative 3. Be real careful with that, which will give me 2 to the 5th power. Then I have this y to the negative 1, and I don't have 1 on top, so I'll just move it to the top, and it'll become y to the 1st power on top, because if it's negative on bottom, then it can be positive on top. Okay? Hope this helps. If you got any questions, come in and see me.